The courthouse smelled like old paper and broken promises. Naomi Bennett sat in the hard wooden chair, her hands folded in her lap, trying to keep them from shaking. She watched Derek sign the final divorce papers with the same hand that had once slipped a wedding ring on her finger 5 years ago. He didn't look at her. Not once. "It's better this way," he had said 6 months earlier, standing in their kitchen with his arms crossed. "I want children, Naomi. A family. You can't give me that." She had stared at him, unable to process the words coming from his mouth. They had been trying for 3 years. 3 years of tests, appointments, hope, and heartbreak. She thought they were in it together. She was wrong. "The doctor said we need to keep trying," she had whispered, her voice breaking. "It takes time." "No." Derek's voice was cold, final. "Your doctor said you're infertile. I saw the reports. I can't waste more years on this. I'm 35, Naomi. I need to move on." She remembered how her knees had buckled. How she'd gripped the counter to stay standing. "What are you saying?" "I'm filing for divorce. I've already talked to a lawyer." He turned toward the door, then paused. "Amber is pregnant. She's giving me what you never could." Amber. His colleague from work. The woman who always smiled too brightly at company parties. The woman who had posted pictures with Derek on social media that Naomi had convinced herself meant nothing. The woman who was now carrying his child while Naomi's womb remained empty. The memory crashed over her like a wave as the judge's voice pulled her back to the present. "The divorce is finalized. You're both free to go." Free. What a strange word. Naomi didn't feel free. She felt like she was drowning. Derek stood up, straightening his tie. Amber was waiting outside the courtroom, Naomi knew. She'd seen her in the hallway, one hand resting on her pregnant belly like a prize. 5 months along, glowing with the kind of joy that should have been Naomi's. Derek's mother had been there too, shooting Naomi looks of pure disdain. "My son deserves better," she had hissed when Derek was out of earshot. "You're broken. Defective. He's doing the right thing." Naomi had said nothing. What was there to say? The medical reports apparently confirmed it. She was infertile. Useless. Unable to fulfill the one thing her husband wanted most. She gathered her purse and stood on shaky legs. The lawyer she'd barely been able to afford gave her a sympathetic look. "Are you all right, Mrs. Bennett?" "I mean Miss Bennett now." "I'm fine," she lied. She had become very good at lying lately. She walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun. It felt wrong that the day could be so beautiful when her entire world had ended. She saw Derek across the parking lot, his arm around Amber's shoulders, whispering something in her ear that made her laugh. His mother stood beside them, beaming at Amber like she was already the daughter she never had. None of them looked her way. Naomi got into her old car, the one Derek hadn't fought for in the divorce because it was too unreliable. She sat there for a long moment, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Then the tears came. Not gentle tears, but the kind that tore through her chest and made her gasp for air. She had given Derek everything. She'd supported him through graduate school, working 2 jobs so he could focus on his studies. She'd moved across the country when he got his dream job, leaving behind her friends and family. She'd put her own career plans on hold. And for what? To be thrown away the moment she couldn't perform her biological function? Her phone buzzed. A message from her sister Rachel. How did it go? Naomi couldn't respond. Instead she started the car and drove. She didn't know where she was going at first, just away. Away from the courthouse, away from Derek, away from the life that had crumbled around her. She ended up at the small apartment she'd been renting for the past 6 months. It was tiny, barely furnished, nothing like the beautiful house she and Derek had shared. The house he now lived in with Amber, preparing a nursery for the baby that would never be Naomi's. Inside, she collapsed on the couch and let herself cry until there were no tears left. The sun set outside her window, painting the room in shades of orange and purple. She thought about the future, about what came next. How did you rebuild a life when the foundation had been completely destroyed? Her phone rang. Rachel again. This time, Naomi answered. "It's done," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. "It's officially over." "Oh, Naomi." Rachel's voice was thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. Do you want me to come over? I can be there in an hour." "No. I need to be alone." "Okay. But I'm here if you need me. Anytime." They said goodbye, and Naomi sat in the gathering darkness, thinking about everything she'd lost. Her marriage. Her husband. The dream of children. Her sense of self-worth. Derek had taken it all. But as she sat there, something else began to grow in the emptiness. It started as a small spark, barely noticeable at first. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but something colder. More determined. He had thrown her away like she was nothing. His family had mocked her. Amber had stolen her life with a smile on her face. And the worst part? They had all made her believe it was her fault. That her body was broken. That she deserved this. Naomi stood up and walked to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face blotchy from crying. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. "This isn't the end," she whispered to her reflection. "I won't let it be." She didn't know how yet. She didn't know what came next. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty: she was going to survive this. More than that, she was going to build a life so incredible that Derek would regret ever letting her go. She washed her face, changed into comfortable clothes, and made herself eat something even though food tasted like cardboard. Then she sat at her laptop and started searching. Jobs in other cities. Fresh starts. New beginnings. By midnight, she had applied to 15 positions in Atlanta, a city where no one knew her story, where she could be anyone she wanted to be, where the label of infertile and divorced wouldn't follow her everywhere she went. She had no idea that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. That the medical reports Derek had shown her were lies. That her body wasn't broken at all. That in just a few short weeks she would discover a truth that would turn everything upside down. But that night, sitting in her small apartment with the divorce papers on her coffee table, all Naomi knew was that she was done being a victim. Derek had taken everything from her. Now it was time to take back her life. And maybe, just maybe, find a way to show him exactly what he'd thrown away. 3 weeks later, Naomi stood in front of her new office building in Atlanta, Georgia. The job offer had come through faster than she expected. Assistant manager at a corporate event planning company. It wasn't her dream job, but it was a paycheck in a new city where nobody knew about her failed marriage. Her apartment was small but clean, in a neighborhood full of young professionals starting over. Everyone here seemed to be running from something or running toward something. Naomi wasn't sure which category she fell into. Maybe both. The work was demanding, but she welcomed it. Anything to keep her mind occupied, to stop the constant replay of Derek's words. "You're infertile. You can't give me what I need." She threw herself into learning the business, staying late, volunteering for extra projects. Her boss, Patricia, was a sharp woman in her 50s who didn't believe in small talk. "You work hard," she told Naomi after 2 weeks. "I like that. Keep it up and you'll move up fast here." Naomi just nodded. Moving up was the only direction she was interested in anymore. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Naomi was in the middle of coordinating a corporate conference when the room started spinning. She gripped the edge of her desk, trying to steady herself. "You okay?" Her coworker, Janet, appeared beside her with concern written across her face. "I'm fine. Just stood up too fast." But even as she said it, a wave of nausea rolled through her stomach. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick. When she came back to her desk, pale and shaky, Patricia took one look at her and said, "Go home. You're no good to anyone like this." Naomi wanted to argue, but another wave of dizziness hit her. "I think I might have caught a bug or something." "Or something," Patricia said with a knowing look that Naomi didn't understand. "Go. Rest. Come back when you're better." The nausea continued for 3 more days. On the 4th day, when she nearly fainted while getting ready for work, Naomi finally admitted she needed to see a doctor. She found a clinic near her apartment and made an appointment for that afternoon. The waiting room was full of people coughing and sniffling. Naomi sat in the corner, scrolling through her phone, trying not to think about the last time she'd been in a medical office. All those fertility appointments. All those tests. All those disappointed looks from Derek when the results came back negative month after month. Naomi Bennett? A nurse called her name. The examination was routine. Temperature, blood pressure, questions about her symptoms. The doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Patel, listened carefully as Naomi described the dizziness and nausea. "When was your last period?" Dr. Patel asked, making notes on her tablet. Naomi had to think about it. With everything that had happened, she hadn't been paying attention. "I don't know. 6 weeks? Maybe 7. Dr. Patel looked up, her expression neutral. "Is there any chance you could be pregnant?" The question hit Naomi like a physical blow. "No. I'm infertile. I can't have children." "Have you been sexually active in the last 2 months?" Naomi's mind went to that one night about 8 weeks ago, right before she left for Atlanta. She'd gone out with Rachel, trying to feel normal again. She'd met a man at the bar. He was kind, funny, made her laugh for the first time in months. His name was Isaiah. They'd spent the night together. She'd never called him back, too ashamed of using someone to make herself feel wanted for a few hours. Once, she whispered. But it doesn't matter. I can't get pregnant. Dr. Patel set down her tablet. Who told you that you're infertile? My ex-husband. He showed me the medical reports. Did you see your own doctor for these tests? Did you discuss the results with your physician? Naomi opened her mouth to say yes, then stopped. Derek had always been the one to handle the medical appointments, to talk to the doctors, to receive the test results. He said it was easier since his schedule was more flexible. She'd been so grateful for his help, never questioning it. No, not directly. Derek handled all of that. Dr. Patel's expression shifted, something that looked like anger flashing across her face before she controlled it. I'd like to run some tests. Would that be all right? Naomi nodded, unable to speak. A terrible suspicion was beginning to form in her mind, one so awful she couldn't let herself believe it. The blood test took 5 minutes. The waiting felt like 5 hours. Naomi sat on the examination table, her hands clenched together, her mind racing through every conversation she'd ever had with Derek about their fertility struggles. When Dr. Patel came back, she had another woman with her. This is Dr. Monroe, our OBGYN. I asked her to look at your results. Naomi's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. What's wrong? Dr. Monroe smiled. Nothing is wrong. Naomi, you're pregnant. About 7 to 8 weeks along based on your hormone levels. The room tilted. That's not possible. It's very possible. In fact, I'd like to do an ultrasound right now if you're willing. Your hormone levels are quite high, which could indicate multiple pregnancies. Naomi couldn't process the words. Multiple? 20 minutes later, she was lying on an examination table, staring at a screen while Dr. Monroe moved an ultrasound wand across her belly. The room was dark except for the glow of the monitor. There, Dr. Monroe said, pointing to the screen. See those 2 sacs? You're having twins, Naomi. Twins. 2 babies. 2 lives growing inside her supposedly infertile body. I don't understand, Naomi whispered, tears streaming down her face. Derek said I couldn't have children. He had reports. Dr. Patel, who had stayed in the room, spoke gently. Naomi, there's something you need to know. We pulled your medical history from your previous doctor's office. You've never been diagnosed as infertile. Not once. All your tests came back normal. The words hung in the air like smoke. What? Your ex-husband lied to you. I don't know why, but there's no medical reason you shouldn't be able to conceive. Your reproductive system is perfectly healthy. Naomi stared at the ultrasound screen, at the 2 tiny forms floating in darkness. 2 babies. Her babies. The babies Derek said she could never have. He had lied. For how long? A year? 2 years? Had he been planning to leave her all along, just waiting for the right moment? Had he been with Amber the entire time, stringing Naomi along with fake medical reports while he built a different life? The betrayal was so deep, so complete, that for a moment Naomi couldn't breathe. Are you all right? Dr. Monroe asked. This is a lot to process. He divorced me, Naomi said, her voice hollow. He divorced me because he said I was infertile. He's having a baby with another woman right now. The 2 doctors exchanged a look. Dr. Patel sat down beside the examination table and took Naomi's hand. I'm so sorry. But Naomi, listen to me. You're going to be okay. You're healthy. Your babies are healthy. What he did was cruel and wrong, but you're going to get through this. I'm having twins, Naomi said, still trying to make it real in her mind. I'm actually having twins. You are. 2 healthy babies, due in about 7 months. 7 months. In 7 months she would be a mother. Not because Derek had allowed it or because some doctor had declared her worthy, but because her body had done exactly what it was supposed to do. She looked at Dr. Patel through her tears. Can I have copies of my medical records? The real ones. Of course. I'll have them sent to you today. Naomi sat up slowly, still staring at the ultrasound picture Dr. Monroe had printed out for her. 2 tiny beans on a black and white photo. Her children. Her proof. She left the clinic in a daze, the ultrasound picture clutched in her hand. Outside, the Atlanta sun was shining, people were going about their normal days, but Naomi's entire world had shifted on its axis. Derek had destroyed their marriage over a lie. He had made her believe she was broken, defective, less than a woman. He had taken away her confidence, her self-worth, her future. And all of it was based on reports he had falsified or hidden from her. She got into her car and just sat there for a long time looking at the ultrasound picture. Then she pulled out her phone and called Rachel. "Hey, I was just thinking about you," Rachel answered cheerfully. "I'm pregnant," Naomi said. "With twins." The silence on the other end lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then Rachel said very quietly, "Derek told you that you were infertile." "He lied. He lied about everything." Naomi's voice broke. "The doctors here pulled my real medical records. I was never infertile, Rachel. He made it all up." Rachel's response was a string of words that would have made their mother faint, ending with, "I'm going to kill him." "No," Naomi said, and she was surprised by the strength in her own voice. "I'm going to do something better. I'm going to build an amazing life. I'm going to raise these babies and show him exactly what he threw away." "You're not going to tell him?" "Why would I? He's not their father. He's nothing to me now." The words felt powerful, liberating. "These are my babies. Mine. He doesn't deserve to know they exist." They talked for another hour, Rachel crying and cursing Derek in equal measure, Naomi slowly letting the reality sink in. She was going to be a mother. A single mother of twins, starting over in a new city with no support system and a job she'd only had for 3 weeks. It should have been terrifying. Instead, Naomi felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. She looked at the ultrasound picture one more time, then carefully placed it in her purse. Tomorrow she would figure out the practical things. How to afford this, how to tell her boss, how to prepare for 2 babies instead of 1. But tonight she let herself feel the joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. Derek had tried to break her. He had lied to her, betrayed her, thrown her away like garbage. But he hadn't won. She was still here. Still standing. And now she had 2 perfect reasons to build a life better than anything he could imagine. She started the car and drove back to her apartment, already planning. She would work hard, save money, create a stable home for her children. She would prove to herself, if no one else, that she was strong enough to do this alone. And maybe, someday when Derek saw what she had become, he would realize the magnitude of his mistake. But that was for later. Right now, Naomi had twins to prepare for. Her new life was just beginning. 2 years changed everything. Naomi stood in the commercial kitchen she now leased, watching her team of 5 employees prepare food for a wedding reception that evening. The air smelled like fresh bread and roasted vegetables. Through the window she could see her catering van parked outside, her business name painted on the side in elegant script. Bennett's Bistro Catering. It still felt surreal sometimes. 3 years ago she'd been sitting in a divorce court, believing she was broken. Now she owned her own business and employed 5 people. The twins had arrived on a rainy Tuesday in May. Jordan and Jade. A boy and a girl, both healthy, both perfect. The pregnancy had been difficult. Carrying twins always was, but Naomi had worked until her 8th month, saving every penny she could. Patricia had been surprisingly supportive. "Take the maternity leave," she'd said. "Your job will be here when you get back." But something had shifted in Naomi during those first weeks with her babies. She'd spent her entire adult life supporting Derek's dreams, putting her own on hold. She'd always loved cooking, had dreamed of opening a catering business. Why not now? She'd used her small savings and a business loan to start Bennett's Bistro Catering, working from her apartment kitchen at first. Rachel had moved to Atlanta to help with the twins, and slowly, order by order, the business grew. Now Jordan and Jade were 2 years old, full of energy and personality. Jordan was serious and thoughtful, already showing an interest in helping mommy cook. Jade was wild and fearless, into everything, keeping Naomi on her toes every single day. Naomi? Her assistant manager, Simone, appeared at her elbow. "The Henderson wedding wants to add 50 more guests. Can we handle it?" Naomi ran the numbers in her head. "Yes. Call our supplier and increase the order. I'll adjust the timeline." This was her life now. Problem solving, managing staff, building something real. It was exhausting and stressful, and she loved every minute of it. The only thing missing was romance, but Naomi had made peace with that. She'd dated a few times in the past 2 years. Nothing serious, just dinners with nice men who didn't understand why she kept them at arm's length. The truth was, she didn't need a man to complete her life. She had her children, her business, her independence. She'd learned that lesson the hard way with Derek. Though sometimes, late at night when the twins were asleep, she wondered if she'd ever trust anyone enough to let them in again. "Miss Bennett?" A man's voice came from the doorway of the kitchen. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Naomi turned to see a tall man in a business suit, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Can I help you?" "My name is Trevor Hamilton. I'm with Hamilton Restaurant Group. We own 15 restaurants across Georgia and South Carolina. He extended his hand. I've been eating your food for 6 months now. You catered my sister's birthday party, and then my company's holiday event, and a charity gala I attended. Every time I'm blown away. Naomi shook his hand, professional but cautious. She'd learned to be careful with men who showed up unannounced with compliments. Thank you. We work hard to deliver quality. I can see that. I'm here because I want to discuss a business proposition. My restaurants need a reliable, high-quality catering partner for our private events. I think your company could be perfect. This was the kind of opportunity Naomi had been working toward. A steady contract with a restaurant group would provide financial stability, allow her to hire more staff, maybe even expand. But she'd also learned to be cautious. I'd need to see the specifics, she said. Volume expectations, timeline, payment terms. Trevor smiled. Of course. I wouldn't expect you to commit without details. Could we set up a meeting? Maybe lunch tomorrow to discuss the contract. I don't do lunch meetings, Naomi said automatically. It was one of her rules. Lunch meetings too often turned into men thinking they were dates. But I can meet you at your office at 2 o'clock. If Trevor was disappointed, he hit it well. My office at 2. Perfect. He handed her a business card. I look forward to it, Ms. Bennett. After he left, Simone came over with raised eyebrows. Girl, did you see how that man was looking at you? He's a potential client. That's all. Ah, a fine potential client who tracked down your kitchen just to compliment your food. Naomi rolled her eyes. Focus on the Henderson wedding, please. But as she went back to work, she found herself thinking about Trevor's smile. Then she pushed the thought away. She didn't have time for complications. Her life was full enough. That evening, after closing the kitchen, Naomi picked up the twins from Rachel's apartment. Her sister had agreed to watch them during work hours in exchange for Naomi paying half her rent. It was an arrangement that worked for both of them. Mommy? Jade launched herself at Naomi's legs the moment she walked in. Hey, baby girl. Naomi scooped her up, breathing in the sweet smell of her daughter's hair. Jordan came over more quietly, wrapping his arms around her waist. We painted today, he said seriously. I made you a picture. I can't wait to see it. Rachel appeared from the kitchen looking tired. They were angels today. By which I mean they only destroyed 2 rooms instead of 3. Naomi laughed. Thank you for watching them. Always. How was work? Good. Actually really good. I might have landed a major contract. She told Rachel about Trevor's visit. Rachel's eyes lit up. That's amazing. And it doesn't hurt that he's fine, right? Rachel. What? I'm just saying, when was the last time you went on a date? I don't have time for dating. I have 2 toddlers and a business. You have 2 toddlers, a business, and no life outside of those things. Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. It's been 2 years, Naomi. Derek doesn't get to ruin relationships for you forever. This isn't about Derek. Isn't it? You won't let anyone close. Every guy who shows interest, you shut down immediately. Naomi bent down to help Jordan put on his shoes, avoiding her sister's eyes. I'm protecting myself. And my kids. That's not a crime. No. But it's not living either. The words stung because they were true. Naomi had built walls so high around her heart that nobody could scale them. But those walls also kept her safe. They kept Jordan and Jade safe. And that was more important than romance. I should get these 2 home, she said, changing the subject. Bath time in bed. Rachel sighed but let it go. Okay. But think about what I said. That night, after the twins were bathed and tucked into their beds, Naomi sat at her small kitchen table with a cup of tea and Trevor's business card. The meeting tomorrow could change everything for her business. Steady income, room to grow, financial security for her children. She looked at the card for a long time, then set it aside and opened her laptop. She had menus to plan and orders to place. That was real. That was safe. Everything else could wait. But as she worked, her mind kept drifting to Trevor's smile, to Rachel's words, to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to keep everyone at a distance forever. She pushed the thought away and focused on her work. She'd gotten this far alone. She didn't need anyone else. The twins were enough. The business was enough. She was enough. The meeting with Trevor had gone better than Naomi expected. The contract was solid, the payment terms fair, and within a month, Bennett's Bistro Catering was providing services for all 15 of his restaurant's private events. The extra income meant she could finally hire 2 more employees and move to a bigger commercial kitchen. It also meant she saw Trevor regularly. He checked in on events, always professional, always respectful. But there was something else there too, a warmth in his eyes when he looked at her, an interest he never quite voiced. "He likes you," Simone said one day as they packed up after an event. "And I think you like him too. He's a client. He's a man who lights up every time you walk in the room." Naomi didn't argue because she'd noticed it too. Trevor was kind, funny, successful. He asked about the twins, remembered their names, once brought Jordan a toy fire truck because Naomi had mentioned her son's obsession with fire engines. He was everything Derek hadn't been. Which was exactly why Naomi kept her distance. 4 months into the contract, Trevor finally made his move. They were reviewing invoices in his office when he set down his pen and looked at her. "Naomi, I need to be honest with you. I didn't seek out your business just because of the food, though it is incredible. I wanted a reason to see you regularly." Her heart did something complicated in her chest. "Trevor, I know you have a policy about keeping business and personal separate. I respect that. But I also think we have something worth exploring. Would you have dinner with me? Not a business meeting. Just dinner." She should have said no. It was her standard answer, the safe answer. But looking at Trevor's hopeful face, Naomi found herself wavering. "I have 2 kids," she said. "I don't have a lot of free time." "I know. And I'm not asking for a lot of time. Just a chance." "I'll think about it," she heard herself say. Trevor smiled, that warm, genuine smile that made him handsome. "That's more than I expected. Thank you." Naomi left his office feeling unsettled. She hadn't let anyone this close in years. The idea of opening herself up again, of trusting someone, terrified her. But maybe Rachel was right. Maybe Derek didn't get to control her life forever. 2 weeks later, she agreed to dinner. They went to a small Italian restaurant, and Trevor was the perfect gentleman. He asked about her life, shared stories about his own childhood, made her laugh until her stomach hurt. When he walked her to her car, he kissed her cheek and said, "Thank you for giving me a chance." That was all. No pressure, no expectations. They started seeing each other casually after that. Dinner every few weeks, coffee when their schedules aligned. Trevor met the twins and was wonderful with them. Jade immediately loved him, climbing into his lap to show him her toys. Jordan was more cautious, but even he warmed up eventually. "He's good with them," Rachel observed one Sunday when Trevor had stopped by with breakfast for everyone. "And more importantly, he's good to you." Naomi wanted to believe it could work. She really did. But every time she thought about letting Trevor all the way in, something held her back. Some deep fear that if she gave him her heart, he'd destroy it the way Derek had. "I like him," she told Rachel. "But I can't. I don't know if I can do this." "You don't have to rush. Just don't shut him out completely." Naomi tried. She really tried. But the walls around her heart were thick and high, built from betrayal and pain. Trevor was patient, never pushing, but she could see the frustration in his eyes sometimes. The question of why she wouldn't let him closer. Then, 6 months into whatever they were doing, Naomi's period was late. At first she didn't think much of it. Stress could mess with cycles. But when a week turned into 2, a familiar fear crept in. She bought a pregnancy test on her lunch break, her hands shaking as she paid. She took it in the bathroom of her commercial kitchen, unable to wait until she got home. 2 minutes later, she stared at the positive result with her heart in her throat. Pregnant. Again. But this time was different. She and Trevor had been careful, using protection every time. Though there was that one night about 8 weeks ago when the condom had broken. They talked about it, decided it was probably fine, that the odds were low. Apparently the odds didn't care. Naomi sat on the closed toilet lid trying to process. Another baby. She was 33 years old, had 2-year-old twins, a business that demanded all her time and energy. How was she supposed to do this again? And what about Trevor? They weren't even officially together. He'd been so patient, waiting for her to open up, and now she was going to tell him she was pregnant with his child? She made an appointment with Dr. Monroe for the next day. The ultrasound confirmed it. 7 weeks along, 1 healthy baby, due in 7 months. "How do you feel about this?" Dr. Monroe asked gently. She knew Naomi's history, knew how complicated her feelings about pregnancy had become. Terrified, Naomi admitted. "I didn't plan this. I'm barely managing 2 kids and a business. How am I supposed to handle 3? The same way you've handled everything else. One day at a time." Dr. Monroe smiled. "You're strong, Naomi. Stronger than you know." That evening, Naomi asked Trevor to come over after she put the twins to bed. He arrived with concern written across his face. "Is everything okay? You sounded upset on the phone." Naomi handed him the ultrasound picture without a word. Trevor stared at it for a long moment. Then he looked up at her, his eyes wide. "You're pregnant?" "Yes." "Is it yours?" "Yes." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I know this isn't what either of us planned. And I know we're not even really together. But I'm keeping this baby, Trevor. I just thought you should know." Trevor sat down heavily on her couch, still holding the ultrasound picture. For a terrible moment, Naomi thought he was going to walk away, that she was about to be abandoned again. Then he looked up at her with tears in his eyes. "I'm going to be a father? If you want to be. I'm not asking for anything from you. I can do this alone." "Alone?" Trevor stood up, crossing to her. "Naomi, I've been trying to get close to you for months. You think I'm going to walk away now? When you're carrying my child? I don't know what to think." He took her hands gently. "I understand you've been hurt. I understand why you're scared. But I'm not him, Naomi. I'm not going to abandon you or this baby." She wanted to believe him. But Derek's words still echoed in her head sometimes. The lies he'd told, the promises he'd broken. "I need time," she whispered, "to figure this out. To process everything." Trevor nodded, even though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. "Okay. Take whatever time you need. But I'm here, Naomi. Whenever you're ready." Over the next few weeks, Naomi struggled with her emotions. She was happy about the baby, truly, but she was also overwhelmed and scared. And underneath it all was anger at herself for getting into this situation, for letting someone close enough to complicate her life again. Trevor checked in regularly, never pushy but always present. He brought her ginger tea when morning sickness hit. He offered to watch the twins so she could rest. He was everything she'd ever wanted in a partner, which made her fear even more intense. "You're self-sabotaging," Rachel told her bluntly one night. "Trevor is a good man who wants to be with you, and you're pushing him away because you're scared." "I have reason to be scared." "No. You have reason to be careful. There's a difference. Trevor has shown you who he is over and over. When are you going to believe him?" Naomi didn't have an answer. All she knew was that opening her heart again felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. One wrong step and she'd fall. But as the weeks passed and her belly started to swell, as Trevor continued to show up without demanding anything in return, Naomi began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, Rachel was right. Maybe not all men were Derek. Maybe Trevor was exactly who he appeared to be. And maybe, if she was brave enough, there was a chance for something real. But that realization came with another thought. She had to face her past before she could fully embrace her future. And her past was back in her hometown, in the life she'd run away from 2 years ago. The business contract that would change everything came the following month. A corporation wanted to hire her for a year-long series of events, all in her old hometown. The money was incredible, enough to triple her business size. But going back meant facing Derek. Facing his family. Facing Amber. Naomi put her hand on her growing belly and made a decision. She wasn't running anymore. She was going back, successful and pregnant and thriving. Let Derek see what he'd thrown away. Let him see what she'd become without him. It was time to close that chapter of her life for good. The sign welcoming visitors to Millbrook, South Carolina, appeared through Naomi's windshield like a ghost from another life. She'd left this town 2 years ago broken and alone. Now she was returning in a catering van with her business name on the side, twins in car seats behind her, and a belly starting to show her third pregnancy. "Are we there, Mommy?" Jordan asked from the back. "Almost, baby. Just a few more minutes." She'd rented a house on the outskirts of town for the duration of the contract. 6 months of events for Brightwell Corporation, their biggest client yet. The money would set her business up for years to come. But more than that, Naomi needed to do this. She needed to come home and show everyone who'd written her off exactly what she'd become. The house was small but comfortable, with a yard for the twins to play in. Rachel had agreed to come stay for the first month to help with childcare. Simone was managing the Atlanta kitchen while Naomi focused on the Millbrook events. They'd been there 3 days when Naomi made her first trip into town for supplies. She'd changed in 2 years. Her hair was different, longer and styled. She'd gained confidence that showed in how she carried herself. She wore a flowing dress that didn't hide her pregnancy but didn't announce it either. The grocery store was the same one she'd shopped at for 5 years. She'd avoided it during her divorce, too embarrassed to face familiar faces. Now she walked in with her head high, the twins holding her hands. She was in the produce section when she heard it. "Oh my God. Is that Naomi Bennett?" She turned to see Melissa Crawford, Derek's cousin. The same woman who'd been at the divorce hearing, whispering with Derek's mother about how Naomi had failed as a wife. "Hello, Melissa." Melissa's eyes went wide, taking in the twins, then Naomi's belly. You have children?" "I do." Naomi kept her voice pleasant. "These are my twins, Jordan and Jade. Say hello to Miss Crawford, babies." Both twins waved shyly. But Derek said, "I mean, you couldn't." Melissa seemed unable to form a complete sentence. Derek said a lot of things. Most of them were lies. Naomi selected an apple, examining it calmly. "How is he, by the way? Still with Amber?" No. They broke up about a year ago, after the baby was born. So Derek had his child with Amber. Naomi felt nothing about that except maybe pity for the child. "I hope the baby is healthy." "She is. A girl." But Amber left him, took the baby and moved back to Tennessee. He barely gets to see her. "That's unfortunate." Naomi put the apple in her basket. "If you'll excuse me, I have shopping to finish." She moved away, leaving Melissa staring after her. She could feel eyes on her as she continued through the store. Word would spread fast in a town like Millbrook. By tonight, everyone would know that Naomi Bennett was back, pregnant again with twins in tow. Let them talk. The first event for Brightwell Corporation was a retirement party for their CEO. Naomi had transformed their conference room into an elegant dining space, prepared a 5-course meal that had the guests raving. She worked the room professionally, checking on guests, making sure everything was perfect. She was refilling water glasses when she felt it. That prickle on the back of her neck that meant someone was watching her. She turned and saw him. Derek. He stood near the bar, a drink in his hand, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. He'd aged in 2 years, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, a weariness in his posture. He was still handsome, but the confidence that had once defined him seemed diminished. Naomi met his eyes for one long moment, then deliberately turned away and continued her work. She had nothing to say to him. But Derek apparently had something to say to her. He followed her into the kitchen between courses. "Naomi, can we talk?" She didn't stop working, directing her staff with calm efficiency. "I'm working." You have children?" Now she did look at him, and she let him see the coldness in her eyes. "I do." "But you said you couldn't?" "No, Derek. You said I couldn't. You lied to me for years, showed me fake medical reports, made me believe I was broken. All so you could leave me for Amber without feeling guilty." He flinched. "It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that." She turned back to her staff. "Mark, take the desserts out. Sandra, start preparing the coffee service. Naomi, please. I made mistakes. I know that now. But seeing you here with kids, are they even? I mean, who's the father?" The audacity of the question made her laugh, cold and sharp. "Not you. That's all that matters. I heard you're pregnant again. Clearly you've moved on." "I have. While you, from what I hear, are alone. Amber left you. Your child is in another state. How does it feel, Derek, to lose everything you thought was so important?" His face went red. "You don't know anything about my life. And you don't know anything about mine. Let's keep it that way." She pointed to the door. "Get out of my kitchen. You're not welcome here." Derek opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. "We're not done talking about this." "Yes, we are. We've been done for 2 years. After he left, Naomi braced herself against the counter, taking deep breaths. Seeing him had been harder than she expected. Not because she still had feelings for him, those had died long ago, but because looking at him brought back memories of who she'd been. Weak, dependent, believing every lie he told. She wasn't that woman anymore. "You okay, boss?" Simone had driven up for the event, sensing Naomi might need support. "I'm fine. Let's finish this event." The rest of the evening went smoothly. The CEO loved everything, and Brightwell's president approached Naomi at the end to tell her they wanted to expand the contract. "We're opening a new office in Charlotte. We'd like your company to handle all the catering for the launch events." It was everything Naomi had been working toward. Expansion, growth, financial security. "I'd love to discuss the details." She left the venue feeling victorious. Derek had seen her success, her children, her obvious pregnancy. He'd seen everything he'd thrown away. But as she drove back to the rental house, Naomi realized something important. The victory felt empty. Derek's opinion of her life didn't matter anymore. She wasn't doing any of this to prove something to him. She was doing it for herself. For her children. For the future she was building. Derek was just a chapter in her story, and that chapter was closed. The real question was, what came next? The Brightwell Corporation Spring Gala was the social event of the season in Millbrook. Naomi had been planning it for 2 months, pulling in her entire team from Atlanta. It was a showcase event, the kind that could make or break a catering company's reputation. She'd chosen a black dress that hugged her 5-month pregnant belly beautifully, made her look successful and powerful. Her hair was styled in elegant curls, her makeup perfect. She looked like exactly what she was. A woman who had built herself up from nothing and was thriving. The venue was the historic Millbrook Hotel, its ballroom transformed into a garden paradise. 500 guests, a live band, an elaborate menu that had taken weeks to perfect. This was Naomi's moment to shine. Derek's mother was one of the first people she saw. Helen Bennett stood near the entrance in an expensive dress, talking to a group of women. Her eyes landed on Naomi and her face went pale. Naomi smiled and walked past her without a word. Let Helen wonder. Let her stew in the knowledge that the woman she'd called defective was now the most successful caterer in 3 states. The event was going perfectly. Guests praised every course, the Brightwell executives were thrilled, and Naomi's staff was executing flawlessly. She was checking on the dessert service when she heard raised voices from the hallway. You need to leave. This is a private event. That was Thomas, her security coordinator. Naomi hurried to the hallway and found him blocking Derek from entering. Derek looked drunk, his tie loose, his face flushed. I just want to talk to her. And I want you to leave. Naomi stepped forward. Thomas, it's okay. I'll handle this. Thomas looked uncertain but stepped back. Naomi led Derek down the hallway to an empty conference room, aware that she shouldn't be alone with him but too angry to care. What do you want, Derek? I want to know if those twins are mine. She'd been expecting this, but hearing him say it still made her furious. They're not. How do I know that? The timeline matches. We were still married when. We hadn't slept together in 8 months before the divorce. Naomi cut him off. You were too busy with Amber, remember? And I got pregnant 2 months after I left town. Do the math. But you said you were infertile. No, you said I was infertile. You lied, Derek. You created fake medical reports, or you bribed doctors, or you just told me lies and I believed you because I trusted you. But I was never infertile. My children are proof of that. Derek stumbled backward like she'd hit him. What? When I left town I found out I was pregnant. Then I got my real medical records. Every test I'd ever taken came back normal. You lied to me for years. I never. There must have been a mistake. The only mistake was me believing you. Naomi's voice was ice. You destroyed our marriage over a lie. You made me hate my own body. You threw me away like I was nothing. And why? So you could be with Amber without feeling guilty? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Derek? Explain to me why you would do something so cruel. He couldn't meet her eyes. Amber got pregnant. It was an accident. And I thought, if you believed you couldn't have kids, you'd let me go without a fight. I thought I was doing the kind thing. The kind thing. The rage that swept through Naomi was so intense she had to grip the edge of a table to stay steady. You thought lying to me about my own body, making me believe I was broken, divorcing me and humiliating me in front of the entire town? You thought that was kind? I was wrong. I know that now. Amber left me. Took our daughter. I barely get to see her twice a year. My job fired me because of the scandal. What scandal? Derek looked away. Someone sent my bosses proof that I'd been falsifying your medical records. Forging documents to make it look like you couldn't conceive. It's illegal, Naomi. I lost everything. Naomi felt no satisfaction in this revelation. Just a weary kind of justice. Good. You deserved that. I know. I know I did. Derek moved closer, desperation in his eyes. But seeing you now with children, successful, I realize what I lost. Naomi, I made a terrible mistake. If there's any chance we could. Stop. She held up her hand. Whatever you're about to say, don't. I still love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me now that I'm successful. You love what I've become because it's what you always wanted. A woman who could give you children and status and success. But you didn't want me when I was broken. When I needed you. That's not fair. Fair? Naomi laughed bitterly. You're talking to me about fair? You destroyed my life over a lie and now you want sympathy because you're facing consequences. I want a chance to make it right. There is no making this right. You can't undo what you did. Those years I spent hating myself, believing I was less than a woman, I can't get those back. The marriage we had, the trust, that's gone forever. So that's it? You've just moved on? Yes. She touched her belly. I have a good life now. A business I built from nothing. Beautiful children. A future that doesn't involve you in any way. And the father of that baby? You're together? That's none of your business. Derek's face twisted with something ugly. So you'll be with someone else but not give me a second chance? You didn't make a mistake, Derek. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in an argument. What you did was calculated and cruel. You spent years lying to me. Years. You don't get a second chance after that. My mother was right about you. You're cold. Your mother called me defective and broken. She mocked me at our divorce hearing. She told everyone in this town that I'd failed as a wife. And you let her. Naomi moved to the door. I'm cold because you froze my heart. But I survived. And now I'm thriving. Without you. She opened the door and found half the gala staff standing in the hallway. They'd obviously heard everything. Among them was Melissa Crawford, Derek's cousin, and several other prominent members of Millbrook society. Naomi didn't care. Let them hear the truth. If you come near me or my children again, she said clearly, I'll get a restraining order. Stay away from me, Derek. You're part of my past and that's where you're staying. She walked back to the gala, head high, leaving Derek in the conference room with an audience who just heard every detail of what he'd done. The whispers started immediately. Naomi could feel eyes on her as she moved through the ballroom, directing her staff. But this time, the looks weren't pity or judgment. They were respect. Admiration even. She'd faced her past and won. Helen Bennett found her near the end of the evening. The older woman looked smaller somehow, diminished. I owe you an apology. You owe me a lot more than that. Naomi didn't stop working. But I'll accept the apology if it makes you feel better. I didn't know Derek had lied about the medical records. You thought I was defective. You called me that to my face, Helen. You told me I'd failed your son. Naomi finally looked at her. You made the worst time of my life even worse. An apology doesn't erase that. I know, but I am sorry. Truly. Then be better to the next woman your son destroys. Naomi turned away. Because we both know this isn't the first time Derek has hurt someone. She left Helen standing there and went to check on the final details of the evening. The event was a massive success. Brightwell's president approached her at the end with a smile. That was extraordinary, Naomi. We're so impressed. In fact, we'd like to discuss making Bennett's Bistro Catering our exclusive caterer for all our events in 3 states. It was more than she dreamed of. The kind of contract that would set her up for life. I'd be honored to discuss it. She left the gala that night feeling lighter than she had in years. She'd faced Derek and his family. She'd told her truth in front of everyone. And instead of destroying her reputation, it had somehow enhanced it. People respected strength. They respected someone who could survive betrayal and come out stronger. Trevor called as she was driving home. How did it go? Derek showed up drunk and tried to say he wanted me back. What? Trevor's voice was sharp with concern. Are you okay? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I told him exactly what I thought of him in front of half of Millbrook society. It felt freeing. I wish I'd been there. I needed to do this alone. But even as she said it, Naomi realized something. She didn't have to do everything alone anymore. Trevor, when I get back to Atlanta, can we talk? Really talk. About us. About us. About the future. About what I want. She touched her belly. I'm ready to stop running from the possibility of being happy. She could hear the smile in his voice. I'll be waiting. Naomi hung up and looked at the lights of Millbrook fading in her rearview mirror. She'd come back to face her past. Now it was time to embrace her future. Whatever that looked like. The scandal spread through Millbrook like wildfire. Within a week, everyone knew that Derek had falsified medical documents, lied to his wife for years, and destroyed his marriage over his own infidelity. The sympathetic looks people had given him when Naomi left town turned to disgust. Naomi heard the updates through Rachel, who'd stayed in touch with a few people from their old church. Derek had lost his position at the engineering firm months ago when someone, nobody knew who, sent his employers proof of the document forgery. Now he was working at a hardware store, barely making enough to cover child support payments to Amber in Tennessee. His mother, Helen, had become a pariah in her social circle. The women who'd once praised her for standing by her son now whispered about how she'd helped cover up his lies. Her bridge club asked her to step down. Her charity board position was quietly eliminated. Naomi should have felt satisfaction. But mostly she felt nothing. These people didn't matter to her anymore. What mattered was the empire she was building. The Brightwell contract had led to 3 more major corporate clients. Bennett's Bistro Catering now operated in 5 states with a staff of 30. She'd had to hire a business manager just to keep up with the growth. The rental house lease was ending and Naomi had made a decision. She was moving back to Atlanta. Millbrook had never really been home, just the place where she'd been broken. Atlanta was where she'd rebuilt herself, where her real life existed. She was packing up the twins' room when there was a knock at the door. Through the window she saw Amber. Naomi's first instinct was to not answer. But curiosity won out. She opened the door but didn't invite Amber inside. "Can I help you?" Amber looked terrible. Her hair was limp, dark circles under her eyes, her clothes wrinkled. Nothing like the glowing pregnant woman Naomi had seen at the courthouse 2 years ago. "I heard you were back in town. I need to talk to you. I don't think we have anything to say to each other. Please." Amber's voice broke. "I made a mistake. A huge mistake. And I'm paying for it." Against her better judgment, Naomi stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her so the twins wouldn't hear. "What do you want, Amber?" "Derek is drowning financially. He barely pays child support. My daughter deserves better than this. I thought, maybe if you talked to him, if you helped him understand how to rebuild his life." Naomi stared at her in disbelief. "You want me to help Derek? The man who destroyed my life. I know what he did was wrong. But you've moved on. You have children, a successful business. You're thriving. Derek is barely surviving." "Good." The word was cold. "He should suffer. He earned it. His daughter is suffering too. She barely knows her father because he can't afford to visit." "That's not my problem." Naomi cut her off. "You slept with a married man, Amber. You got pregnant and helped destroy a marriage. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" Amber's face crumpled. "I thought he loved me. He said his marriage was already over, that you and he were just waiting for the right time to divorce. I didn't know about the lies until it all came out. And when you found out? I left him, took our daughter and moved away. But now I'm struggling too and I thought maybe you'd be willing to help because you're successful and kind and..." "Kind?" Naomi laughed harshly. "I'm not kind, Amber. I'm a survivor. And survivors don't help the people who try to destroy them. So you're just going to let his daughter suffer?" "I'm not letting anything happen. Derek's choices led to this. Your choices led to this. Figure it out yourselves." She turned to go back inside, but Amber grabbed her arm. "Please. I know I don't deserve your help. But my daughter does. She's innocent in all of this." Naomi pulled her arm away. "You know what my children are? Proof that Derek lied to me for years. Proof that he destroyed our marriage for nothing. Your daughter has a father. My children don't. So don't talk to me about innocent children suffering." She went inside and closed the door, locking it firmly. Through the window, she watched Amber stand on the porch for a long moment before finally walking away. Rachel came down the stairs, Jordan and Jade trailing behind her. "Was that who I think it was?" "Yes." "What did she want?" "Help. For Derek." Naomi shook her head. The audacity of these people. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. I'm done with all of this." She looked at her sister. "We're going home to Atlanta next week. I'm done with Millbrook." That evening, Naomi got a call from her lawyer. "I thought you should know. Derek filed a petition to establish paternity of your twins." Naomi's blood went cold. "What?" "He's claiming that based on the timeline the children could be his. He wants court-ordered DNA tests. They're not his. I got pregnant months after we divorced." "I know. And we'll prove that. But this is going to be a fight, Naomi. Derek is desperate and desperate people do foolish things." She hung up feeling sick. Derek wasn't going to let this go. He'd lost everything and now he was trying to claim her children as some kind of consolation prize. "Not happening," she said to the empty room. "Not ever." The court hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Trevor flew in to be there with her, even though she'd told him it wasn't necessary. "You shouldn't have to face this alone," he'd said simply. The courtroom was smaller than the one where her divorce had been finalized. Derek was there with a cheap lawyer, looking haggard and defeated. Naomi sat beside her attorney, Trevor on her other side, and felt nothing but contempt. Derek's lawyer made his case. "My client believes these children were conceived during the marriage. He deserves to know if they're his biological children." Naomi's lawyer stood smoothly. "Your Honor, my client's medical records show that she was still undergoing fertility treatments during her marriage, treatments that were unsuccessful. She conceived these children via artificial insemination several months after the divorce was finalized, using an anonymous donor. It was a lie but a strategic one. They discussed this approach. Claiming donor conception meant Derek had no parental rights even if the timeline was questionable. Derek jumped to his feet. That's not true. She's lying. The judge banged her gavel. Mr. Bennett, sit down. Miss Bennett, do you have documentation to support this claim? Naomi's lawyer produced papers from the fertility clinic in Atlanta. Another strategic lie, but one that protected her children. The conception date is clearly documented, Your Honor. Well after the divorce was finalized. The judge reviewed the documents. Then she looked at Derek with cold eyes. Mr. Bennett, are you aware that you're on record as having falsified medical documents regarding your ex-wife's fertility? Derek's lawyer tried to interject, but the judge held up her hand. I've read the case file. You told Ms. Bennett she was infertile, showed her fake medical reports, divorced her on those grounds, and then it came to light that you'd fabricated everything. Now you're trying to claim children she had after your divorce? This looks like harassment, Mr. Bennett. I just want to know if they're mine. They're not, Naomi said clearly. And even if they were, you'd have no rights. You threw away any claim to be a father when you destroyed our marriage over a lie. The judge ruled in Naomi's favor. Derek's petition was denied, and the judge issued a restraining order preventing him from contacting Naomi or coming near her children. Walking out of that courthouse, Naomi felt the final weight lift from her shoulders. Derek couldn't touch her anymore. Couldn't touch her children. The past was finally, truly over. You lied about the donor conception, Trevor said quietly as they walked to the car. I protected my children. That's all that matters. I'm not judging. I'm just, you're incredible, you know that? She looked at him, this man who'd stood by her through everything, who'd never asked for more than she was willing to give. I think I'm finally ready. Ready for what? To stop being scared. To let someone in again. She took his hand. If the offer's still open. Trevor's smile was brighter than the afternoon sun. It's always been open. 3 days later, Naomi left Millbrook for the last time. Her catering van was packed, the twins were buckled in, Rachel sat in the passenger seat. In her rearview mirror, the town grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. She was going home. To Atlanta, to her business, to Trevor, to the life she'd built from nothing. Derek and Amber and Helen and all the rest of them could keep their small-minded town in their judgment. Naomi had something better. She had herself. And that was enough. More than enough. Atlanta welcomed Naomi back like an embrace. Her commercial kitchen hummed with activity, her staff working seamlessly to fulfill orders that had continued to pour in. The news of her Millbrook triumph had spread through industry circles. Not the scandal, but the success. Bennett's Bistro Catering was now the most sought-after catering company in the Southeast. But the biggest change was Trevor. For the first time since Derek, Naomi let someone truly close. Trevor moved into her house slowly, carefully, always checking to make sure she was comfortable. He was wonderful with Jordan and Jade, patient and kind, never trying to replace a father they'd never known but simply being present. I love you, he told her one night after the twins were asleep, his hand resting gently on her pregnant belly. All 3 of you. Soon to be 4. Naomi believed him. That was the miracle, she actually believed him. She was 7 months pregnant when Isaiah reappeared. Naomi was at the commercial kitchen going over menus with Simone, when a man walked through the front door. Tall, dark-skinned, with kind eyes that she recognized immediately even though it had been nearly 3 years since she'd seen him. Naomi? The name. The voice. She'd remember that voice anywhere because it had been the last time she'd felt wanted before everything changed. The night they'd spent together had been brief but tender, and then he'd disappeared, leaving her with just a first name and fading memories. And unknowingly with twins. Isaiah. Her heart started pounding. What are you doing here? I've been looking for you for 2 years. He stayed by the door, uncertain. Can we talk? Please? Simone looked between them with raised eyebrows. Naomi nodded slowly. My office. 5 minutes. She finished her conversation with Simone, her mind racing. Isaiah was here. The man who was actually Jordan and Jade's father, though he had no idea. The man she'd spent one night with and then run from because she was too broken to handle any kind of connection. In her small office, Isaiah stood awkwardly by the window. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the worry lines that hadn't been there before. How did you find me? She asked. It took a while. You never called me back and I only knew your first name. But I finally tracked you down through your business. He ran a hand over his face. Naomi, I need to explain why I disappeared. It's fine. We barely knew each other. That's not true. We connected that night. I felt it and I think you did too. Then I just vanished. He sat down heavily. The morning after we met, I got a call. My mother in Jamaica had a stroke. I flew out that day. She needed constant care and I couldn't leave her. I'm sorry about your mother. She passed away 6 months ago. It took this long to settle her affairs, deal with the property, everything. He looked at her directly. But I thought about you the entire time. I tried to find you before I left, but you'd already moved. I only had your first name. Naomi's hand instinctively went to her belly. She was carrying Trevor's child, but Jordan and Jade were Isaiah's biological children. Did she tell him? Did she open that door? I've moved on, she said carefully. My life is very different now. I can see that. His eyes went to her pregnant belly. You're having a baby? Yes. Something flickered across his face. Disappointment, maybe, or regret. You're with someone? I am. A good man. We're building a life together. I'm happy for you. He didn't sound happy. He sounded lost. I shouldn't have come. I just needed to know you were okay. To explain why I left. He stood to go and Naomi felt something twist in her chest. This man was her children's biological father. He had a right to know they existed. But telling him would complicate everything. Her relationship with Trevor, the story she'd told in court about donor conception, the life she'd so carefully constructed. Isaiah, wait. He turned back, hope lighting his face. Naomi took a deep breath. Then she walked to her desk and pulled out her phone. She showed him a picture of Jordan and Jade. These are my twins. They're 2.5 years old. Isaiah stared at the photo. She watched as he did the math as understanding dawned in his eyes. Naomi, are they? They're yours. Biologically. I found out I was pregnant about a month after that night. He sank back into the chair, his eyes never leaving the photo. I have children? You have children. But Isaiah, you need to understand something. I'm not asking you for anything. I built a life for them. They're happy, healthy, loved. I didn't tell you before because I couldn't find you and then I moved on. Can I meet them? His voice was rough with emotion. Please, Naomi. I'm not trying to disrupt your life or make demands. But if they're mine, I need to meet them. She'd known he would ask. Of course he would ask. And despite all her careful planning, all her protection of her small family, Naomi found she couldn't say no. They don't know about you. I told them their father was someone I knew briefly who went away. That's not far from the truth. Trevor, the man I'm with now, he's been like a father to them. They call him Trevor, not Daddy, but he's important to them. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I just want a chance to know them. To be part of their lives if you'll let me. Naomi studied his face. He looked sincere, genuinely emotional about discovering he had children. But she'd been fooled by sincerity before. If I let you into their lives, you have to be consistent. Kids need stability. I won't have you meeting them and then disappearing again. I'm not going anywhere. I swear. And Trevor stays in the picture. He's been there for them since they were babies. You two will have to figure out how to co-parent peacefully. I can do that. Naomi made a decision that would either be the best thing she'd ever done or a terrible mistake. Come to dinner tomorrow night. Meet the twins. We'll figure out the rest from there. That evening she told Trevor about Isaiah. They sat in her living room after the twins were asleep, and she explained everything. The one-night stand when she was broken and desperate to feel anything other than pain, finding out about the pregnancy, never being able to find Isaiah again. He's their biological father, she finished. And he wants to be part of their lives. Trevor was quiet for a long moment. How do you feel about that? Terrified. But also, he has a right to know his children. I can't deny him that. And you're sure you can trust him? I don't know. But I have to try. For Jordan and Jade's sake. Trevor took her hand. Okay. Then we'll figure this out together. I'm not going anywhere, Naomi. You need to know that. Even with this complication? Even with this. I love you. I love Jordan and Jade. Whatever happens with Isaiah doesn't change that. For the second time that day, Naomi felt overwhelmed by emotion. Trevor was nothing like Derek. Nothing at all. The dinner the next night was awkward at first. Isaiah arrived with gifts for the twins, thoughtful gifts, not random things grabbed at a store. A book about Jamaica for Jordan, who loved reading. A toy doctor's kit for Jade, who'd been saying she wanted to help people when she grew up. The twins were shy initially, hiding behind Trevor's legs. But Isaiah was patient, sitting on the floor and letting them come to him in their own time. By the end of the evening, Jade was showing him her drawings and Jordan was telling him about his favorite dinosaurs. "They're amazing," Isaiah said to Naomi as he was leaving. "You've done an incredible job with them." "Thank you. Can I see them again? Maybe take them to the park this weekend?" Naomi looked at Trevor, who nodded slightly. "Okay. Saturday afternoon. We'll all go together." Isaiah's face fell slightly at the all, but he agreed. Saturday it is. Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Isaiah visited twice a week, always with Trevor present. The twins grew comfortable with him, though they didn't fully understand who he was yet. That conversation would come later when they were older. The interesting thing was watching Trevor and Isaiah together. There was some tension at first, two men circling around the same children trying to figure out their roles. But gradually they found a rhythm. Trevor was the daily presence, the one who did bedtime and breakfast and bath time. Isaiah was the special visitor, the one who brought new experiences and different perspectives. "This is weird, right?" Rachel said one day watching all three adults play with the twins at the park. "You've got two men who both love your kids, both want to be in your life." "It's weird," Naomi agreed. "But it's working." "And you're sure Trevor isn't bothered by Isaiah?" "He says he's not. And I believe him. Trevor is secure enough to know he's important to the twins, that Isaiah being in the picture doesn't diminish that." Rachel shook her head in wonder. "You've come a long way from the woman who left Millbrook 2 years ago." Naomi touched her pregnant belly, watching her two men and her two children play together in the sandbox. "Yeah, I guess I have. Life was complicated. But it was also full and rich and so much better than anything she'd had with Derek. She'd built this family from scratch, piece by piece, and it was hers. All of it was hers. And nobody could take it away." The baby came 3 weeks early on a warm September evening. Trevor drove Naomi to the hospital while Rachel stayed with the twins, and Isaiah met them there within an hour. It should have been strange having both men in the waiting room, but somehow it felt right. Joy Marie Bennett entered the world at 7:43 p.m., weighing 7 pounds exactly. She had Trevor's eyes and Naomi's nose and a full head of dark hair. She was perfect. "She's beautiful," Trevor whispered, holding his daughter for the first time with tears streaming down his face. "She's so beautiful." Isaiah had hung back, giving them space, but Naomi called him over. "Come meet your stepdaughter." He looked uncertain about the title but came anyway, peering down at the tiny bundle in Trevor's arms. "Congratulations. Both of you." They were still in the hospital 2 days later when Derek showed up. Naomi was nursing Joy in her private room when there was a commotion in the hallway. She heard Trevor's voice, sharp and angry, then another voice she'd hoped never to hear again. "I just want to talk to her." Trevor appeared in the doorway, his face furious. "Derek is here. Security is on the way, but—" "Let him in." Naomi's voice was calm. She'd been expecting this. Millbrook wasn't far away and news traveled fast. "Naomi, it's okay. Let him say whatever he came to say. Then he can leave." Trevor looked like he wanted to argue, but he stepped aside. Derek pushed past him into the room, and Naomi got her first good look at her ex-husband in months. He looked awful. Thin, unshaven, with the desperate look of a man who'd lost everything and was trying to claw his way back. "You had another baby." His eyes were on Joy, and something in his expression made Naomi pull her daughter closer. "I did. And you need to leave. I heard you're with someone. That he's the father." Derek's voice was bitter. "How many men have there been, Naomi? First the twins' father, now this one? You moved on pretty fast for someone who claimed to love me." Trevor stepped forward, but Naomi held up her hand. She could handle this. "Yes, I moved on. Because you destroyed our marriage with lies and betrayal. What did you expect me to do? Pine for you forever? I expected you to remember that we had 5 years together. That we built a life. You built a life. I just lived in it, believing every lie you told me." She adjusted Joy in her arms. "Why are you really here, Derek?" "Because I'm drowning." The words burst out of him. "I lost everything. My job, my reputation, my daughter. Amber won't let me see her. My mother won't speak to me. I'm working retail, living in a studio apartment, and I can barely afford to eat. Meanwhile, you're here with 3 kids, a successful business, and a new man. It's not fair." "Fair?" Naomi's voice was ice. "You want to talk about fair? You lied to me for years. You made me believe I was broken. You divorced me and humiliated me. And now you're upset because you're facing the consequences." "I was wrong. I admitted that. But does that mean I deserve to lose everything?" Yes. The word was simple, final. You do. Because you didn't just make a mistake, Derek. You systematically destroyed another person's self-worth over an extended period of time. You falsified legal documents. You committed fraud. You betrayed vows you made in front of family and God. So yes, you deserve every single thing that's happened to you. Derek's face crumpled. I came here to apologize. To ask if there was any way we could. No. Naomi cut him off. There is no way. There is no us. There never will be again. I don't hate you anymore, Derek. I don't feel anything for you at all. You're just a man I used to know who taught me what I don't want in my life. So you're just going to let me suffer? I'm not letting you do anything. Your suffering is a consequence of your own choices. She looked at him steadily. I could have been vindictive. I could have come after you legally for what you did. But I didn't because revenge isn't worth my energy. I have a life to build, children to raise, a future to create. You're not part of any of that. You're really not going to help me? Why would I? What did you ever do to deserve my help? He had no answer. Security arrived then, 2 large men who escorted Derek out despite his protests. Naomi listened to his voice fade down the hallway, then looked at Trevor. I'm sorry you had to see that. Don't apologize. Trevor sat on the edge of her bed carefully. You were amazing. Strong. I'm proud of you. I meant what I said. He doesn't affect me anymore. I know. That's what makes it so powerful. Over the next few days in the hospital, Naomi had time to think about her life. About the journey from that broken woman in divorce court to the mother of 3 in a hospital bed, surrounded by people who loved her. Isaiah visited every day, bringing the twins to meet their new sister. Jordan was fascinated, wanting to know everything about babies. Jade was less interested, more concerned that the baby was taking up mommy's attention. You're not being replaced, Naomi told her daughter, pulling her close. Mommy has enough love for all of you. Promise? I promise, baby girl. Trevor's parents came to meet Joy, warm and welcoming to Naomi in a way that Derek's family never had been. They brought gifts, offered to help, treated the twins like their own grandchildren even though they weren't biologically related. This was family, Naomi realized. Not blood, not obligation, but choice. These people chose to be in her life and she chose to let them in. Rachel stayed at the hospital most days, helping with the twins when Isaiah had to work. You've built something incredible, she told Naomi one afternoon. A family on your own terms. Not completely on my own. No. But you were willing to do it alone if you had to. That's what makes it incredible. Naomi looked at her sleeping daughter, at her sister, at the life she created from the ashes of her divorce. Rachel was right. This was incredible. Not perfect, life never was, but real and full in hers. The day she was released from the hospital, Trevor drove her home with Joy in a car seat beside her. Isaiah brought the twins separately, giving Trevor and Naomi time alone with their new daughter. Are you happy? Trevor asked as they pulled into the driveway. Yes, completely. And you're sure about us? About this relationship? Naomi looked at him, this man who'd been patient when she needed patience, strong when she needed strength, present when she needed presence. He'd never demanded anything she wasn't ready to give. He'd never made her feel like she owed him something for his love. I'm sure. Trevor, you've been everything I needed when I didn't even know what I needed. You've loved my children like they were your own. You've supported my business, my dreams, my healing. Yes, I'm sure about us. He smiled, that bright, genuine smile that had drawn her to him in the first place. Good. Because I'm planning to stick around for a very long time. Inside the house, Jordan and Jade waited with Isaiah, who decorated the living room with welcome home banners. The twins rushed to Naomi, careful of the baby, telling her all about their day. This was her family. Complicated, unconventional, but completely hers. Trevor, her partner. Isaiah, her children's father and friend. Jordan, Jade, and Joy, her beautiful children. Rachel, her steadfast sister. And herself, the woman who'd survived betrayal and built something beautiful from the ruins. Derek had no place in this picture. She'd finally truly let him go. Not with anger or bitterness, but with the simple understanding that he was irrelevant to her future. She'd chosen herself, her children, her life. And that choice had led her here to this moment, surrounded by love. Welcome home, Mommy, Jordan said seriously, holding her hand. Thank you, baby. It's good to be home. And it was. This house, this life, this family, it was home in a way nothing had ever been before. Because she built it with her own hands, her own strength, her own refusal to stay broken. Derek had thought he'd destroyed her. But all he'd done was force her to rebuild herself stronger. And Naomi had rebuilt herself into someone extraordinary. 1 year later, Naomi stood in front of a crowd of 200 people, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly, a microphone in her other hand. The ballroom was filled with business owners, local politicians, and media, all here for the grand opening of Bennett's Bistro Catering's flagship restaurant. 5 years ago, she began, her voice steady and strong, I was told I would never have children. I was told I was broken. I lost my marriage, my home, and very nearly lost myself. Her future was here, in this backyard, surrounded by people who chose to love her and whom she chose to love back. You okay? Rachel appeared beside her, joy still in her arms. I'm perfect. Naomi took her youngest daughter, breathing in that sweet baby smell. Everything is perfect. You deserve this. You know that, right? You deserve all of this happiness. I do know. Finally. That was the real victory, not the business success or the loving husband or the beautiful children. The real victory was believing she deserved good things. Believing she was worthy of love and respect and happiness. Derek had taken that belief away. She built it back brick by brick, day by day. And now it was unshakable. Trevor came over, slipping his arm around both of them. What are we looking at? Everything, Naomi said simply. Everything that matters. 6 months later, their fourth child was born. A boy this time healthy and loud and demanding. They named him Marcus. No, wait, she promised not to use that name. They named him Cameron Trevor Bennett. Jordan and Jade were protective older siblings. Joy was fascinated by the baby, always wanting to help. Isaiah was a steady presence, co-parenting the twins with grace and maturity. Trevor was an amazing father to both Joy and Cameron, loving them fiercely. Bennett's Bistro Catering continued to grow. Naomi hired a CEO to manage day-to-day operations, allowing her to focus on creative direction and spending time with her children. The restaurant thrived, winning awards and accolades. But more than the business success, Naomi found satisfaction in the small moments. Reading bedtime stories to her children. Cooking Sunday dinner with Trevor. Watching Isaiah teach the twins about their Jamaican heritage. Laughing with Rachel over coffee while the kids played. These were the moments that mattered. These were the victories that counted. 5 years after her divorce, Naomi received an email. It was from Melissa Crawford, Derek's cousin. I thought you should know. Derek moved to another state. He's trying to rebuild his life. I hope you found peace too. Naomi read the email once, then deleted it without responding. Derek's life wasn't her concern anymore. Whether he rebuilt or fell apart made no difference to her. She had peace. She had love. She had purpose. She had built a life that was entirely her own, free from lies and manipulation and false promises. That night, she stood in her kitchen while dinner cooked, watching her family through the window. Trevor was playing soccer with the older kids. Isaiah had stopped by and was holding Cameron, telling him stories even though the baby couldn't understand yet. Rachel was setting the table for the family dinner they shared every Sunday. This was her empire. Not built with money or power or revenge, but with love and determination and an absolute refusal to stay broken. Derek had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd given her the opportunity to become something greater than she'd ever imagined. And for that, in a strange way, she was grateful. Not grateful for the pain or the betrayal, but grateful for the strength she'd discovered in herself. The resilience. The absolute certainty that she could survive anything. Dinner's ready, she called out the window. Her family came inside, loud and chaotic and beautiful. They gathered around the table, this family she built from scratch, this family that loved her not because they had to but because they chose to. Let's go around and say what we're grateful for, Trevor suggested. It was their Sunday tradition. Jordan said he was grateful for his dinosaur books. Jade said she was grateful for ice cream. Joy, barely able to talk, said, Mama. Isaiah said he was grateful for second chances. Rachel said she was grateful for family. When it was Naomi's turn, she looked around the table at all these faces, all these people who made her life complete. I'm grateful for new beginnings, she said. And for the strength to start over when everything falls apart. Trevor squeezed her hand under the table. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, everyone echoed. And that's exactly what Naomi had found. Not an ending but a beginning. A chance to write her own story, to define her own worth, to build a life that was authentically hers. Derek had been wrong about so many things. But he'd been most wrong about this. Naomi Bennett was not broken. She was not defective. She was not less than. She was extraordinary. She was strong. She was enough. And she always had been.